I think the tragedy of industrial agriculture and fossil agriculture is to constantly increase fossil use, including for fossil chemicals and external input dependence, but never counted these inputs in any productivity and efficiency calculus. 10 to 15 times more inputs to generate 1 unit of bad food. Over the years in India, I have talked to every agricultural scientist and every agricultural economics and said, what are the inputs you calculate? The only input they take into account is the farmer themselves. And I've always said, but the farmer is not an input. The farmer is part of the system that is the culture of agriculture. You can't take an end, an object, something that is the purpose, and turn it into an input. And through that definition, every technology that displaces the farmer by itself increases food production, even though it does not. Glyphosate and Roundup decreases the work of farmers, but is defined as increasing production by destroying all the biodiversity that could feed us. Amory Lovins did this work years ago, and I think we need to update it. He showed that for every American, there were 250 energy slaves, more than the Nigerian. And therefore, this is in the 70s, instead of the 4 billion population, the population was really 200 billion, with most of the population not eating food, but eating energy, fossil. And if we were to take today's population, this would be 3.35 trillion people, except that they are energy slaves. And I think the way to have enough food for all is to do what was done during the Great Depression and the Great Dust Bowl. The two crises were one crisis: the collapse of the economy and the destruction of the soil. And what was done at that time, Well, he created a conservation corps to put people to work on conservation and regeneration of soil and also create employment. So in countries where the farmers are still there, like mine, we need to defend them. And they've been defending them. 14 months they were on the streets to say we will not disappear. We want to be small farmers. We want to be sovereign farmers. But for the rest of the world, given that 50% emissions come from industrial agriculture, and you can actually have negative emissions with an ecological agriculture and organic farming, having a conservation corps would be the way to put more people in creative work, but that means redefining work for the healing of the land as creative. It's been too often defined as drudgery. I remember journalists asking me, but you promote small farmers, therefore you support the oppression of women because it's such bad work. And I just asked this journalist, I said, do you do gardening? And he said, of course, it's so beautiful. I said, the same activity, when you do it, is fulfilling and beautiful. And when a woman does it for her food sovereignty, it's oppressive. This apartheid must end. We must recognize that growing of food is the highest vocation. In India, we have Anna Devta, the person who gives you food is the highest vocation in life. That's the big cultural shift. And then the big cultural shift of instead of $400 billion of subsidies for industrial farming, we shift that to say, go to the land, take care of the earth, grow more food, solve the climate problem, and become physicians, not just of the earth, but physicians of the people. The evidence is all there. Right now, industry only has propaganda, nothing more than propaganda. The earth and people and farmers and the sick people who are suffering are realizing there has to be another way we go. And people have to work in care instead of fossil fuels being energy slaves to displace us from work.